everybody. So sorry that I got here late. I've been looking around for the speech. Trying to find it. I found that he did a speech yesterday. I was thinking he did it today. Does anybody know? If you guys know, let me know. We are still going to be talking about January 6th, and we do have the speech from yesterday that Joe Biden gave. So if anything, we will just watch some of that. But let's see what you guys are saying. Uh so hey XJ, how are you? So nice to see you. Hey, Poner Houston is in the house. How are you? Nathan, hey, how's it going? So nice to see you too. Sorry guys. I'm out of breath. I was running around getting all this stuff last minute. So okay, I have some good stuff for you today. But hey, Bradley's here too. First of all, has anybody else heard anything about the speech that Biden was supposed to give today? Is it just me? Am I completely off? Um, but what I'm going to do is pull up the one from yesterday, because apparently that was a feisty speech that he gave yesterday. And we're going to watch that. So hold on just a second, guys. Let me pull that up. And let me get that pulled up and we will watch that together. And then after that, we're going to discuss was January 6th and insurrection or riot. We'll talk about it. I've got evidence to back up my belief. And we're gonna go from there. It's gonna be a fun one. Hi, Dave Hurley's in the house. Hey. Hey, Snoopy's here too. Okay, so I'm gonna pull up the speech that Biden did yesterday. Maybe I was mistaken and maybe it was yesterday instead of today, but that's okay. We've got a speech to watch and it's supposed to be an interesting one. So I haven't seen it yet. I don't know if you guys have or not, but let's see. Here we go. Let me make sure. I hate having to do it this way because let me know how the sound is. It's not the best way to do it, but we're going to do what we can. So let me get the sound all ready while they're getting ready, and then okay, past this nonsense. I got my light in the way. I'm gonna move it over. Here we go. Okay. Let me get fast forward until Biden comes up, because quite a bit apparently. Oh, Joe, where are you? Goodness, there's a lot of just waiting around, isn't there? Who this fella is. Here we go. Okay.
The President of the United States,
Can you
Joe
guys hear that
Biden,
okay?
and the First Lady of the United States, Dr. Jill Biden.
Let me know how the sound is. It's music. It's disco in the 70s.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, Snoopy.
Thank you. Thank you. Please. Thank you.
What a raucous crowd.
Please. Thank you very, very much. Today, the topic of my speech today is deadly serious. And I think it needs to be made at the outset of this campaign. In the winter of 1777, was harsh and cold as the Continental Army marched to Valley Forge. General George Washington knew he faced the most daunting of tasks, to fight and win a war against the most powerful empire existent in the world at the time. His mission was clear: liberty, not conquest; freedom, not domination; national independence, not individual glory. America made a vow: never again would we bow down to a king. Months ahead would be incredibly difficult. But General Washington knew something in his bones, something about the spirit of the troops he was leading, something about the soul of the nation he was struggling to be born. In his general order, he predicted, and I quote, "With one heart and one mind, with fortitude and with patience, they would overcome every difficulty," the troops he was leading. And they did. They did. This army that lacked blankets and food, clothes and shoes, this army whose march left bloody bare footprints in the snow, this ragtag army made up of ordinary people, their mission, George Washington declared, was nothing less than a sacred cause. That was the phrase he used, a sacred cause. Freedom, liberty, democracy, American democracy. I just visited the grounds of Valley Forge. I've been there a number of times from the time I was a Boy Scout years ago. You know, it's the very site that I think every American should visit, because it tells a story of the pain and the suffering and the true patriotism it took to make America. Today, we gather in a new year, some 246 years later, just one day before January 6th. A date forever shared in our memory because it was on that day that we nearly lost America, lost it all. Today, we're here to answer the most important of questions. Is democracy still America's sacred cause? I mean it. This is not rhetorical, academic, or hypothetical. Whether democracy is still America's sacred cause is the most urgent question of our time. And it's what the 2024 election is all about. The choice is clear. Donald Trump's campaign is about him, not America, not you. Donald Trump's campaign is obsessed with the past, not the future. He's willing to sacrifice our democracy, put himself in power. Our campaign is different. For me and Kamala, our campaign is about America. It's about you. It's about every age and background that occupy this country. It's about the future we're going to continue to build together. And our campaign is about preserving and strengthening our American democracy. 3 years ago tomorrow, we saw with our own eyes the violent mob storm the United States Capitol. It was almost in disbelief as you first turned on the television. For the first time in our history, insurrectionists had come to stop the peaceful transfer of power in America. First time. Smashing windows, shattering doors, attacking the police. Outside, gallows were erected as the MAGA crowd chanted, "Hang Mike Pence." Inside, they hunted for Speaker Pelosi. The House was chanting as they marched through and smashed windows, "Where's Nancy?" Over 140 police officers were injured. Jill and I attended the funeral of police officers who died as a result of the events of that day. Because of Donald Trump's lies, they died because these lies brought a mob to Washington. He promised it would be wild, and it was. He told the crowd to fight like hell, and all hell was unleashed. He promised he would right them. Everything they did, he would be side by side with them. Then, as usual, he left the dirty work to others. He retreated to the White House. As America was attacked from within, Donald Trump watched on TV in a private small dining room off the Oval Office.
Off my Oval Office.
The entire nation watched in horror. The whole world watched in disbelief. And Trump did nothing. Members of his staff, members of his family, Republican leaders who were under attack at that very moment pled with him. Act. Call off the mob. Imagine had he gone out and said, "Stop." And still, Trump did nothing. It was among the worst derelictions of duty by a president in American history. An attempt to overturn a free and fair election by force and violence. A record 81 million people voted for my candidacy and to end his presidency. Trump lost the popular vote by 7 million. Trump's claims about the 2020 election never could stand up in court. Trump lost 60 court cases, 60. Trump lost the Republican-controlled states. Trump lost before a Trump-appointed judge and then judges. And Trump lost before the United States Supreme Court. All of it, he lost. Trump lost recount after recount after recount and state after state. But in desperation and weakness, Trump and his MAGA followers went after election officials who ensured your power as a citizen would be heard. These public servants had their lives forever upended by attacks and death threats for simply doing their jobs. In Atlanta,
They're
Georgia,
public servants. They get it all the
brave
time.
black mother and her daughter, Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, were doing their jobs as election workers until Donald Trump and his MAGA followers targeted and threatened them, forcing them from their homes and unleashing racist vitriol on them. Trump's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, was just hit with a $148 million judgment for cruelty and defamation that he inflicted against them. Other state and local elected officials across the country faced similar personal attacks. In addition, Fox News agreed to pay a record $787 million for the lies they told about voter fraud. Let's be clear about the 2020 election. Trump exhausted every legal avenue available to him to overturn the election, every one. But the legal path just took Trump back to the truth, that I'd won the election and he was a loser. Well, so knowing how his mind works now, he had one act left, one desperate act available to him: the violence of January the 6th. And since that day, more than 1,200 people have been charged for their assault on the Capitol. Nearly
1,200
of them
American
have
citizens.
been convicted or pled guilty. Collectively, to date, they have been sentenced to more than 840 years in prison.
Right, they're rounding them up. They're rounding up their own citizens.
And what's Trump done? Instead of calling them criminals, he's called these insurrectionists patriots. They're patriots. And he promised to pardon them if he returns to office. Trump said that there was a lot of love on January the 6th. The rest of the nation, including law enforcement, saw a lot of hate and violence. One Capitol police officer called it a medieval battle. That same officer was called vile racist names. He said he was more afraid in the capital of the United States of America, in the chambers, than when he was fighting as a soldier in the war in Iraq. He said he was more afraid
Come on.
inside the halls of Congress than fighting in the war in Iraq. And trying to rewrite the facts of January 6th, Trump is trying to steal history the same way he tried to steal the election. But we knew the truth because we saw it with our own eyes.
Yeah, he did know the truth. You were right.
This
The
wasn't
first
on
time,
something
that wasn't a
historical. It was
misspeak.
on television repeatedly. We saw it with our own eyes. Trump's mob wasn't a peaceful protest. It was a violent assault. They were insurrectionists, not patriots. They weren't there to uphold the Constitution. They were there to destroy the Constitution.
Yeah, that's your job, Joe.
Trump won't do what an American president must do. He refuses to denounce political violence. So hear me clearly. I'll say what Donald Trump won't. Political violence is never, ever acceptable in the United States political system. Never, never, never. It has no place in a democracy, none.
We are a constitutional republic.
You can't be pro-insurrectionist and pro-American. You know, Trump and his MAGA supporters not only embrace political violence, but they laugh about it. At his rally, he jokes about an intruder whipped up by the big Trump lie, taking a hammer to Paul Pelosi's skull and echoing the very same words used on January 6th. Where's Nancy? And he thinks that's funny. He laughed about it. What a sick. My God. I think it's despicable, seriously. Not just for a president, for any person to say that. But to say it to the whole world listening. When I was overseas, anyway. Trump's assault on democracy isn't just part of his past. It's what he's promising for the future. He's being straightforward. He's not hiding the ball. His first rally for the 2024 campaign opened with a choir of January 6th insurrectionists singing from prison on a cell phone, while images of the January 6th riot played on a big screen behind him at his rally. Can you believe that? This is like something out of a bad fairy tale on our Capitol.
Hold on a second,
The guy
guys.
claims law and order.
Let me pause this for a moment. I don't know if StreamYard's getting upset because I haven't paused it and talked about it, but this is crazy. I mean, I'm watching what you guys are saying here as well, and you can see the storyline that he's painting for you, right? And he's running for president. Why doesn't he talk about what he wants to do? Why doesn't he talk about the things he wants to create, what he wants to change? Why is he still talking? I mean, I understand this is the anniversary of January 6th, but, you know, we're almost 20 minutes in or 15 minutes in, and the guy hasn't said anything about his campaign. So maybe he just has nothing to say.
Sows lawlessness and disorder. Trump's not concerned about your future, I promise you. Trump is now promising a full-scale campaign of revenge and retribution, his words, for some years to come. They were his words, not mine. He went on to say he'd be a dictator on day one. I mean, if I were writing a book of fiction, I said an American president said that.
It's okay, Joe. You're still a
Not in
dictator.
jest.
On day.
He called, and I quote, the termination, quote, this is a quote, the termination of all the rules, regulation, and articles, even those found in the U.S. Constitution, should be terminated if it fits his will.
Terminated.
Kind of hard to believe.
Okay, hold on
Even
a second
found in
here,
the
Joe.
Constitution.
I'm gonna hold on. I
You
gotta
can
listen to this
terminate
again.
and disorder. Trump's not concerned about your future, I promise you. Trump is now promising a full-scale campaign of revenge and retribution, his words,
Well,
for some years to come.
maybe you deserve it.
They were his words, not mine. He went on to say he'd be a dictator on day one. I mean, if I were writing a book of fiction, I said an American president said that. And not in jest. He called, and I quote, the termination, quote, this is a quote, the termination of all the rules, regulation, and articles, even those found in the U.S. Constitution.
They keep saying that, but when did Trump ever say this?
should be
When did he say it?
terminated if it fits his will. It's really kind of hard to believe.
It is. It's very
Even
hard to
found
believe.
in the
We agree on that.
Constitution, he could terminate. He's threatened the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff with the death penalty. Says he should be put to death because
No.
the chairman put his oath to the Constitution ahead of his.
No. What he said, and they say this about that Trump says this about General Milley and Mike Pence. What he said was what they did was could have been considered treason, and the oh my gosh, the penalty for treason used to be death. Still believe it is a capital punishment. So he's not wrong. He never said he wanted to kill them. He said they committed treason, and the penalty for treason used to be death. He even used the past tense. So enough of this baloney that he's saying he wants to kill them.
Personal loyalty to Trump. This is coming from a president who called, when he visited cemeteries, called dead soldiers suckers and losers. Remember that?
Oh, he's getting angry. Settle down, Joe. Don't have a stroke.
Sometimes I'm really happy the Irish in me can't be seen. It was right around the time I was at Bo's grave, Tommy. How dare he? Who in God's name does he think he is? With former aides, Trump plans to invoke the Insurrection Act, which will allow him to deploy, which is not allowed to do in ordinary circumstances, allow him to deploy U.S. military forces on the streets of America. He said it.
We're going to go over that actually today. That's not what it does.
He calls those who oppose him vermin.
That's not what he said.
Talks about the blood of America as being poisoned.
Oh, here we go. Adolf Hitler.
The same exact language used in Nazi Germany.
Here we go.
He proudly posts on social media the words that best describe his 2024 campaign. Quote, revenge, quote, power, and quote, dictatorship. There's no confusion about who Trump is, what he intends to do. I placed my hand on our family Bible, and I swore an oath on the very same steps of the Capitol, just 14 days after the attack on January the 6th. As I looked out over the capital city, whose streets were lined with National Guard to prevent another attack, I saw an American that had been pushed to the brink, America that had been pushed to the brink. But I felt enormous pride, not in winning, I felt enormous pride in America, because American democracy had been tested. American democracy had held together. When Trump had seen weakness in our democracy and continues to talk about it.
Our constitutional republic.
Strength, your strength. It's not hyperbole, your strength, your integrity, American strength and integrity. Ordinary citizens, state election officials, the American judicial system had put the Constitution first, and sometimes at their peril. At their peril. Because of them, because of you, the will of the people prevailed. Not the anger of the mob or the appetites of one man. When the attack on January 6th happened, there was no doubt about the truth. At the time, even Republican members of Congress,
you'd be drunk.
Fox News commentators, publicly and privately condemned the attack. As one Republican senator said, Trump's behavior was embarrassing and humiliating for the country. But now that same senator and those same people have changed their tune.
Well, everybody can come to their senses.
Time has gone on. Politics, fear, money, all have intervened. And now these MAGA voices who know the truth about Trump on January 6th have abandoned the truth and abandoned the democracy. They made their choice. Now the rest of us, Democrats, independents, mainstream Republicans, we have to make our choice. I know mine, and I believe I know America's. We'll defend the truth, not give in to the big lie. We'll embrace the Constitution and the Declaration, not abandon it. We'll honor the sacred cause of democracy, not walk away from it.
Hold on. Did he just say we'll embrace the Declaration of the Constitution? What?
Make our choice. I know mine, and I believe I know America's. We'll defend the truth, not give in to the big lie. We'll embrace the Constitution and the Declaration, not abandon it. We'll honor the sacred cause of democracy, not walk away from it. Today, I make this sacred pledge to you: the defense, protection, and preservation of American democracy will remain, as it has been, the central cause of my presidency. America, as we begin this election year, we must be clear. Democracy is on the ballot. Your freedom is on the ballot.
Is it? Is it?
Yes, we'll be voting on many issues. On the freedom to vote and have your vote counted. On the freedom of choice. The freedom to have a fair shot. The freedom from fear. And we'll debate and disagree. Without democracy, no progress is possible. Think about it. The alternative to democracy is dictatorship. The rule of one, not the rule of we, the people. That's what the soldiers of Valley Forge understood. And so was me. What we have to understand it as well. We've been blessed so long with a strong, stable democracy. It's easy to forget why so many before us risked their lives and strengthened democracy. What our lives would be without it. Democracy means having the freedom to speak your mind, to be who you are.
Yeah, that's interesting you bring that up, Joe.
To be. Democracy is about being able to bring about peaceful change. Democracy is how we've opened the doors of opportunity wider and wider with each successive generation, notwithstanding our mistakes. But if democracy falls, we'll lose that freedom. We'll lose the power of we, the people, to shape our destiny. If you doubt me, look around the world. Travel with me as I meet with other heads of state throughout the world. Look at the authoritarian leaders and dictators Trump says he admires. He out loud says he admires.
Seriously.
Won't go through them all. It'll take too long. Look, remember how he refers to what he calls love letter exchanges between he and the dictator of North Korea? Those women and men out there in the audience ever fought for the American military. Did you ever believe you'd hear a president say something like that? His admiration for Putin. I could go on. And look at what these autocrats are doing to limit freedom in their countries. They're limiting freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom to assemble, women's rights, LGBTQ rights. People are going to jail, so much more. It's true, the push and pull of American history is not a fairy tale. Every stride forward in America is met with ferocious backlash many times from those who fear progress and those who exploit that fear for their own personal gain. From those who traffic in lies, told for power and profit. For those who are driven by grievance and grift, consumed by conspiracy and victimhood. From those who seek to bury history and ban books. Ever think you'd be in a political event talking about book banning for the presidential election? The choice and contest between those forces, those competing forces, between solidarity and division is perennial. But this time it's so different. You can't have a contest. You can't have a contest if you see politics as an all-out war instead of a peaceful way to resolve our differences. All-out war is what Trump wants. That's why he doesn't understand the most fundamental truth about this country. Unlike other nations on earth, America is not built on ethnicity, religion, geography. We're the only nation in the history of the world built on an idea, not hyperbole, built on an idea. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal. It's an idea declared in the Declaration, created in a way that we've viewed everybody as equal and should be treated equal throughout their lives. We've never fully lived up to that. We have a long way to go. But we've never walked away from the idea. We've never walked away from it before. And I promise you, I will not let Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans force us to walk away now. We're living in an era where a determined minority is doing everything in its power to try to destroy our democracy for their own agenda. The American people know it, and they're standing bravely in the breach. Remember after 2020, January 6th insurrection to undo the election in which more Americans had voted than any other in American history? America saw the threat posed to the country.
Yeah, unfortunately, some of them were dead that voted. That's weird.
Historic midterm election. In state after state, election after election, the election deniers were defeated. Now in 2024, Trump is running as the denier-in-chief, the election denier-in-chief. Once again, he's saying he won't honor the results of the election if he loses. Trump says he doesn't understand.
Yeah.
Well, he still doesn't understand the basic truth. That is, you can't love your country only when you win. You can't love your country only when you win.
I've never heard Trump say he doesn't love his country right now.
Well, I'll keep my commitment to be president for all of America, whether you voted for me or not.
Wrong.
I've done it for the last 3 years, and I'll continue to do it.
No, you have not.
Together, we can keep proving that America is still a country that believes in decency, dignity, honesty, honor, truth. We still believe that no one, not even the president, is above the law. We still believe.
False. Who knows that?
The vast majority of us still believe that everyone deserves a fair shot at making it. We're still a nation that gives hate no safe harbor. I tell you from my experience working with leaders around the world, and I mean this sincerely, not a joke, that America is still viewed as the beacon of democracy for the world. I can't tell you how many world leaders, and I know all of them, virtually
I know all of them.
grab my arm in private and say, "He can't win. Tell me." No, my country will be at risk. Think of how many countries, Tommy, you know that are on.
Sure, that's what their conversations are.
Imagine. We still believe in we the people. And that includes all of us, not some of us. Let me close with this. In the cold winter of 1777, George Washington and his American troops of Valley Forge waged the battle on behalf of a revolutionary idea. That everyday people, like where I come from and the vast majority of you, not a king or a dictator, that everyday people can govern themselves without a king or a dictator. In fact, in the rotunda of the Capitol, there's a giant painting of General George Washington, not President Washington. And he is resigning his commission as commander-in-chief of the Continental Army. A European king at the time said after he won the revolution, now's the time for him to declare his kingship. But instead, the mob that attacked the Capitol, waving Trump flags and Confederate flags, stormed right past that portrait. The image of George Washington gave them no pause, but it should have. The artist who painted that portrait memorialized that moment because he said it was, quote, one of the highest moral lessons ever given to the world, end of quote. George Washington was the height of his power, having just defeated the most powerful empire on earth. Could have held on to power as long as he wanted. He could have made himself not a future president, but a future monarch, in effect. And by the way, when he got elected president, he could have stayed for 2, 3, 4, 5 terms till he died. But that wasn't the America he and the American troops at Valley Forge had fought for. In America, genuine leaders, democratic leaders with a small d, don't hold on to power relentlessly. Our leaders return power to the people, and they do it willingly, because that's the deal. You do your duty. You serve your country. And ours is a country worthy of service, as many Republican presidents and Democratic presidents have shown over the years. We're not perfect, but at our best, we face head on the good, the bad, the truth of who we are. We look in the mirror and ultimately never pretend we're something we're not. That's what great nations do. And we're a great nation. We're the greatest nation on the face of the earth. We
Well,
really
we used to
are.
be. Well,
That's the America I see in our future. We get up. We carry on. We never bow. We never bend. We speak of possibilities, not carnage. We're not weighed down by grievances. We don't foster fear. We don't walk around as victims. We take charge of our destiny. We get our job done with the help of the people we find in America, who find their place in a changing world and dream and build a future that not only they, but all people deserve a shot at. We don't believe, none of you believe America's failing. We know America's winning. That's American patriotism. It's not winning because of Joe Biden.
true.
It's winning. This is the first national election since January 6th. Insurrection placed a dagger at the throat of American democracy since that moment. We all know who Donald Trump is. The question we have to answer is, who are we? That's what's at stake. Who are we? In the year ahead, as you talk to your family and friends, cast your ballots. The power is in your hands.
It should
For
be.
all we've been through in our history, from independence to civil war to 2 world wars to a pandemic to insurrection, I refuse to believe that in 2024 we Americans will choose to walk away from what's made us the greatest nation in the history of the world. Freedom, liberty, democracy is still a sacred cause.
The
And there's
Constitution of the
no
Republic
country in
is
the
so
world
sacred.
better positioned to lead the world than America. That's why I've said it many times. That's why I've never been more optimistic about our future. And I've been doing this a hell of a long time.
Too long.
Just to remember who we are
Time to retire, bud.
with patience and fortitude, with one heart. We are the United States of America, for God's sake. I mean it. There is nothing. I believe with every fiber, there's nothing beyond our capacity if we act together and decently with one another. Nothing, nothing, nothing. I mean it. We're the only nation in the world that's come out of every crisis stronger than we went into that crisis. That was true yesterday. It is true today. And I guarantee you will be true tomorrow. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you.
First of all, the absolute gall of this man to hold this speech at Valley Forge is just beyond. No, my ancestor, George Ross, who signed the Declaration of Independence, is rolling in his grave hearing that speech. Unbelievable. And he keeps saying, that he's the American president for all of America, except all of the MAGA and extreme Republicans. Well, they're American too. So Are you the president for all of America or are you not? There's so many hypocritical things about that speech, and I know you guys were picking up on a lot of them as I watched you, that it is just absolutely crazy. Yeah, absolutely. Poner has it just right. Divider of the people. He's the divider in chief. He is like, it is so hypocritical. I can't. I can't. Okay. So, today we're going to talk about a few things. But we're going to talk about J6 because it's the anniversary of J6. So, what they keep calling it an insurrection. And there's a big question about whether or not it actually was an insurrection. So, let's look at that. Let's look at the definition of insurrection. Let's look at the history. Let's look at what the founding fathers were saying. That is like, we're going to look at all that stuff. Plus, we're going to look at, I have a clip from an interview from a cop who was there on January 6th, actually inside the Capitol building. And we're going to look at Trump's speech to see, was he trying to incite an insurrection? All of those things need to be looked at. Because until we get past this idea that it was an insurrection, which, by the way, it was not, it was a protest that turned into a riot at most. So, all right, today, what is the definition of insurrection? So, according to case law, an insurrection is a violent uprising by a group or movement acting for the specific purpose of overthrowing the constituted government and seizing its power. An insurrection occurs where a movement acts to overthrow the constituted government and to take possession of its inherent powers. I don't know how anyone could logically say that that was an insurrection according to that definition. I really don't. I don't know anyone who could say that they were there to overthrow the constituted government and to take possession of its inherent powers. And the reason that I say that is there were at least 20,000 people outside of the Capitol building. And as you're going to hear from this police officer, they didn't have enough men to hold them back. If all 20,000 came forward, there's nothing they could have done about it. They could have done absolutely nothing. So they clearly were not there to overthrow the government. In addition, if Trump truly wanted an insurrection, keep in mind, he was still president at the same time. So one, how does he insurrect himself? And two, the army and the military are still under his control. He was still acting president at that time. He could have used the military for an insurrection if he truly wanted to do that. Okay. Sorry. It's the ridiculousness. All right. So I found some interesting things that I want to share with you guys. I found let me share this screen with you so you guys can see it. This one. Yes, this one. Okay. Let me see. I want to make sure it's big enough that you guys, okay, that's good. So this is actually, all right, so this is page 26 of 88. I want to go up to the top. So this is a Supreme Court decision from January 1849. 1849, because a lot of the problem with people saying it is an insurrection or it is an insurrection is mentioned in the Constitution, but it's never truly defined in the Constitution. And so that's where I think some of the confusion comes from, that and the Democrats are throwing it out there because they want you to think that it is an insurrection. But there's no actual definition in the Constitution. But if we look at case law, if we look at what the founding fathers say, if you look at what were considered insurrections in the past, you'll understand this was not an insurrection. So this is the Supreme Court of the United States, right? They are the highest level of our judiciary branch. And so let me go back to, what was it? Page 28, I think, right? Was it 28 or 26? Let me see. I think it was 28. Okay. So in this, they are talking about, they're talking about a lot of things, but they're talking too about like, when states are developing their constitution, kind of the procedure to go along with that. But they do also talk about, so there was a rebellion in Massachusetts and called Shays Rebellion. And they're talking a little bit about how to handle these things. And they do in this give us some idea as to what an insurrection is. Right here. Now, no. Now, therefore, if revolution includes insurrection and rebellion, right there, includes insurrection and rebellion, in parentheses, all of which are attempts to change a subsisting government by force. Then they create that domestic violence, which is contemplated by the Constitution, and which by the Act of 1795, they have the law provided for suppressing. So this is saying revolution includes both insurrection and rebellion, and all of those are attempts to change a subsisting government by force. No one was going in there trying to change the government and overthrow the government and take over the government. They weren't trying to do that. And like I said, if they wanted to, they could. There was no evil plan to overthrow the government. There were no weapons that we know of other than flagpoles, and one guy had a crutch. This is not an organized militia of people coming in to overthrow the government. So if we go by what the Supreme Court has stated, and we should, because they are the highest law in the land, they are saying that it is an attempt to change, an attempt to change a subsisting government by force. That is not what they were there to do. They were there, and we can't know what was in the mind of everybody who was there, but they were there to support Trump, to protest an election, because that was what was going on in Congress at that point. They were counting the votes, right? They were there to protest an election that they felt was fraudulent. So we have not heard any concrete evidence that they were there, that there was a plan to overthrow the government. We have not heard that because it doesn't exist. As far as we know, it does not exist. Excuse me. And yes, good point to David Hurley. The guy with the crutch was trying to keep the cops from killing. Yes, from killing. There was a woman, Roseanne. I can't remember her last name. Roseanne, was it? Rosalind? Yes, Boyd, I think was her last name. Yeah, he was trying to hold the crowd and the cops back because she was already unconscious on the ground at that point. And they were worried she was going to get trampled. Now, unfortunately, that guy who was trying to save her has several charges against him at this point. Which, I mean, it is absolutely crazy. Okay, so you may have heard people talk about the Insurrection Act. Now, the Insurrection Act, it basically, let me see, I had it pulled up. Let me make sure I can find it. The Insurrection Act basically states that when something is occurring, and usually whenever you hear about it read about it in the Constitution or any of the kind of historical papers that discuss this, they usually talk about it in terms of days. I think one of them specifies if it's 4 days or more. So we're talking 4 days versus 4 hours here. But basically, it says that the president can label something an insurrection. And once he does that, he can then use the military to come and suppress said insurrection. It also says the president isn't the only one who can do that. He's usually the first one to do that, but Congress can also do it. So Congress can also say there's an insurrection, and then we can get the military out to help suppress this. None of that happened. Neither Trump nor Congress called it an insurrection that day. None of them invoked the Insurrection Act. Nobody has sort of talked about the fact that didn't happen. So by all accounts, by all definitions, this was not an insurrection. It was not a premeditated plan to overthrow the government. They were unarmed as far as we know. I haven't seen anybody saying that they were, shooting up the Capitol. Nobody invoked the Insurrection Act. It was not an insurrection. It was a protest that got out of hand and turned into a riot, just like we've seen many other times in this country. The only difference here is that it was in the Capitol building or near the Capitol building. then went into the Capitol building, and Congress was affected by it. Congress was scared. So therefore, they're going to label it an insurrection. Well, what about all of the other riots within this country that affect the American citizens? You're not calling those insurrections, are you? No, only when it affects them personally. It was not, unequivocally, was not an insurrection. And there's an interesting, I don't know if you guys have heard about this. So I don't want to get into all of the cases about Trump. Hold on, I want to pull this up. But there was an amicus curiae, that was sent to the Supreme Court by, I believe it was 27 cases. Yes, here we go. Is this? Let me see. Hold on. Let me double check and make sure this is the right one. 27 cases, or 27 states, excuse me, who are against removing Trump from the ballot. I don't think that's the one. Let's see. Maybe this has the link to it. Sorry, guys. Hold on a second. Let me just find this for free, or real quick. That is not it. Boy. Okay. And basically in it, they talk about, okay. They talk about insurrection in that as well, which is why I want to find it really quick for you so we can go through that just a little bit. Here we go. I think it is. Yeah. The amicus curiae, and this is from the states. Let me double check. Ooh, hold on. Getting through the table of contents, which is long. Okay. Okay, here we go. And we're going to this. Here we go. Okay, now we can all see it, right? Let me just double check. Okay, perfect. So basically they're saying this court has warned judges away from the intervening in the most intensely partisan aspects of American political life. They're saying, we understand that, but Colorado has taken Trump off the ballot. Maine is doing the same. Everything's going to get crazy. We really need you to step in here. So they're not in defense. I don't think they said that they were in defense of either party in the case, but they're coming from the perspective of so in the context of a presidential election, state-imposed restrictions implicate a uniquely important national interest. Here we go. Colorado's decision, it threatens to throw the 2020 presidential election into chaos. Yet the courts are supposed to give a due regard for the public interest in orderly elections. At the same time, the state court took on a question, and basically the court said that judge found that he was guilty of insurrection, though it actually wasn't a finding. It was within her discussion of the case itself. And she's going against what Congress had already acquitted him of. So she basically is putting herself above the findings of Congress. But she found that she wasn't going to take him off the ballot. And then, of course, it went to the Supreme Court in Colorado, and they overturned that. So, the Colorado's court decision will create widespread chaos. Most obviously, it casts confusion into an election cycle that is just weeks away. Beyond that, it upsets the respective roles of the Congress, the states, and the courts, right? So we have our branches of the government. Oh, for goodness sakes. Okay, we have our branches of the government, and they're saying, by her saying that it was an insurrection, she is putting herself in a higher position than Congress, and she's not allowed to do that according to the Constitution. There we go. In deciding that former President Trump engaged in insurrection, the Colorado court fashioned a definition of insurrection that is standardless and vague. So she's coming up with her own, uh, just very open and not very well tailored definition of insurrection. She's just creating one. The best available evidence suggests that insurrection equates with a rebellion, a more demanding standard than the Colorado court settled on. But what constitutes insurrection is not a question courts should answer at all. And that is true. Only, according to the Insurrection Act, the president or Congress can declare an insurrection. So yep, you should rule on this to avoid chaos. So Colorado's putting themselves in a place where they shouldn't be. Apparently, this is what this is saying. Let's see. Let's get down to the insurrection part. And they're saying, yeah, the decision below throws confusion into the executive branch's activities too. First, the past. If the Colorado court decision is correct, then some have argued that former President Trump would be immediately disqualified the moment he purportedly engaged in an insurrection on January 6th. And this is what they're saying. I think this is what they're saying that they used to say that. Under this view, the actions that former President Trump took between January 7th and 20th, including the pardons he issued and the bills he signed into law, would not be constitutionally valid. Thanks to Colorado, then, some might now try to say that America was without a president for 2 weeks. This is why the courts are not able to say that something was an insurrection. It's a good one reason why. Second, in the future, if the court starts declaring persons insurrectionists under Section 3, then it could spawn questions about whether the double jeopardy clause would prevent the government from levying a second punishment against any of those persons for the same events. So we know President Trump has already been impeached and tried for inciting an insurrection within Congress, which is the only part of the government that is constitutionally allowed to rule on that. And they acquitted him. So if she's saying that he is an insurrectionist, does this fall under the double jeopardy clause? And if the lid is truly off Pandora's box and state courts can freely disqualify past and present presidents under Section 3, then it's not hard to conceive of even more troubling outcomes. Okay. So basically they're saying that they want the Supreme Court to grant the petition to return the power to Congress where it belongs. The 14th Amendment provides that no person shall hold any office, I'm sure you guys have heard this, who having previously taken an oath as an officer of the United States to support the Constitution of the United States shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same. But if it stresses that Congress shall have the power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article, and it specifies that only Congress, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, and there's a reason for that to ensure that it isn't politically motivated, may remove the disability imposed by the insurrection clause. Thus, the 14th Amendment charges Congress with deciding on how the insurrection clause will be enforced, not a district court. So you can see how the idea of an insurrection, and by calling it an insurrection, it has created this incredible confusion. And it's the branches of the government are all just kind of jumbled up right now. Courts are deciding this. Little dictator secretaries of state are saying, "I'm taking them off the ballot." It's absolutely crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So let's just look at January 6th itself, okay, and see if the government is calling it insurrection. And we heard about this, right? Days before, we heard about they're afraid something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. The media, the news, they were all putting it out there, right? If they were so afraid that something was going to happen, why didn't they plan for it? And in fact, 2 days prior to the event, Trump told the Secretary of Defense, and others were in the room, that he authorized the use of 20,000 National Guard if they needed it for January 6th to, bolster the security. He gave them that authorization. Now, according to the kind of the rules, the president has to authorize it, but the state or the local government has to ask for it. So they then went, Kash Patel, I believe it was Kash Patel, went and called up the mayor DC and said, "Hey, just so you know, Trump has authorized 20,000 National Guard for the day of January 6th to enhance security. Do you want it? You have to ask for it. We can't just bring them out, and it takes time. So we're asking you now." And she said, "No, I don't want it. We don't need it." Couldn't have been too concerned, right? Now, you would think the day of, well, maybe they're going to prepare for this a little bit more. They did not. So I'm going to show you right now an interview with a man. His name is he was Lieutenant Tariq, excuse me, Lieutenant Tariq Johnson. He worked for the Capitol Police. I don't know, I'm not sure if he still does or not. I shouldn't say worked. I have no idea if he still does or not, but he was assigned inside the Capitol building on January 6th. And I'm not going to play the whole interview. It's with the Heritage Foundation. I'll put the link in the description below if you do want to go watch the whole interview, and I highly recommend it. It's a really interesting interview. But he's talking about the kind of the day of the events, before everything happened.
January 6th, there was a lot in the media about the rally. Did any of that percolate on your radar personally?
None of it.
None of it. Did anyone share that within the Capitol Police as there might be a big rally that day, we should be prepared?
Now, I'm an old guy, so I don't really do social media. I had Facebook at the time. I had Twitter, but I think my last tweet was like 2011 before all of this stuff. Now I'm on Twitter all the time now. I might have posted something maybe once every 4 or 5 months on Facebook. I didn't hardly go on Facebook. So I'm hearing, and there were other social media platforms that people were on that I don't even know about or heard of. And apparently officers, younger officers for the most part, they were hearing chatter about certain things and they were bringing up to their supervisors. None of that made it to me. None of my supervisors, I don't even believe any of my supervisors were advised to my knowledge. And if they were, they never told me. But some supervisors were fielding questions from some of the officers, I guess, around the hill about something happening that was pretty big, but it never made it up the chain to division commanders, as far as like inspectors, captains, lieutenants. It never made it to me. It never made it to my knowledge, any of the other captains or the inspector in my division.
So in your decades-long career with the Capitol Police, how usual was it for intelligence reports about events that may be occurring in the future to make it to your desk or come to your awareness?
All the time. Whenever we had big events, we would normally get a POA. I don't remember seeing one for this event. We would get, sometimes if it was something that we may even get a verbal briefing from the captain, or somebody would talk to us about something, or just tell us to be aware of this. This may be happening. None of that occurred for January 6th.
So I want to read you a quote. This is from an unnamed officer of the Capitol Police, and he said this, or she said this, to the Associated Press. Quote, "During the 4th of July concerts and the Memorial Day concerts, we don't have people come up and say, we're going to seize the Capitol, but yet you bring everybody in, you meet the day before. That never happened for this event," end quote, with this event referring to January 6th. Do you agree with that officer's assessment?
To me, it sounds like the officer is saying that they were getting that intel and they didn't bring anybody in. And I do. And I'm sure that that officer was shocked to see that nothing was, for the most part, was done for this event. But when we have some minor events where we don't have any reports of violence that's going to occur, and we bring in the world, but we do nothing for this day.
How could
So very little.
How could something like this happen? The lack of preparation.
Only two reasons. Number one, sheer incompetence, or number two, somebody wanted this to happen.
Interesting, right? How could this have happened? The lack of preparation, sheer incompetence, or somebody wanted this to happen? What do you guys think? Uh, eh, it is crazy that they didn't have, there were no briefings. They didn't have more officers on the scene. He also talked about in another part of that video that they put out there, I think that they said it was either 1,200 or 1,400 officers were on that day. He said that number is actually false. That is taking into account all of the officers that were on duty that day, which includes the overnight shift, so the midnight shift, which is I think he said it starts on would have started on January 5th at 11 p.m. and goes to like 7 a.m. Those officers would have been counted in that number. It's talking about the officers that were assigned to different areas that weren't called over to the Capitol. So he said they really inflated those numbers to make it seem like they had more people there than they actually did. So why didn't they prepare for this? I mean, they were all talking about it, right? They were all, oh, something's going to happen. And yet they didn't prepare for it. They refused the National Guard. If you, I just so happen to have it here, Stephen Sund, he was the chief of police for the Capitol Police that day. And he tried multiple times to get Nancy Pelosi to get more help, to get other other regiments set out, to get the National Guard there. Of course, it was too late to get the National Guard there. And that's what Kash Patel said. And Kash Patel, who was, I believe he was the Secretary of Defense, right? He even said that before that, they said, no, they didn't want it. But the day of, Nancy Pelosi was asking for tanks with the giant machine guns on them. She wanted those. She said, where are the tanks? So she wanted those used on American citizens. And he said, even if we get this out here, we are not, first of all, we're not bringing tanks out. But even if we get any of the military out here, which by the way, it's a little too late to do that now. We can't get people from around the country here in an hour. But we're not firing on the American public. We're not doing that. It's not legal. So it's all a little bit crazy. But anyways, this is interesting. Stephen Sund is another interesting one to look into. Sund, S-U-N-D. And he talks about he was kind of made into the fall guy when because Nancy Pelosi said that she never spoke to him that day. She went on air and told the American public she hadn't heard from the Capitol Police, and he's the chief of that. At that point, he'd spoken to her, I think, 3 times with witnesses, and she was saying, "Oh no, I haven't even heard from him." It's a complete, it's a complete just lack of taking any responsibility and a lack of doing anything when she had talked with him several times. So she was lying about it, just flat out lying about it. Okay. Then we've also heard, hold on, let me stop this. We've also heard about Donald Trump. Donald Trump incited this, right? And, it's interesting. I have talked with people and I say, well, Donald Trump did say we will peacefully and patriotically make our voices heard. And people swear up and down, no, he didn't. Yes, he did. And I have the video to prove it.
Down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down anyone you want, but I think right here, we're going to walk down to the Capitol. And we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women. And we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them. Because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength and you have to be strong. We have come to demand that Congress do the right thing and only count the electors who have been lawfully slated. I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. Today, we will see whether Republicans stand strong for integrity of our elections. I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. Today, we will see whether Republicans stand strong for integrity of our elections, but whether or not they stand strong for our country. Our country. Our country has been under siege for a long time, far longer than this 4-year period. We've set it on a much straighter course, I thought, 4 more years, I thought it would be easy.
Okay, there it is. He did, in fact, say peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. And we're also going to look at the tweets because I have those as well. Let's see. Here we go. So these are, and this is from the American Presidency Project, the tweets of January 6th. Talking about, there are some that are talking about, it looks like they're setting up a big voter dump against the Republican candidates, waiting to see how many votes they need. At 5:08 a.m., just happened to have found another 4,000 ballots from Fulton County. Here we go. 5:16. Why are they stopping the vote count in Democrat Chatham County, Georgia? This sounds familiar. So he's talking about the election, right? Let's see. Let me find where he started talking about the. Okay, here we go. So this was at 3:24 p.m. Right? Yeah. Yes, 3:24 p.m. Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do. Oh no, I'm sorry. 7:24. Forgetting my military time. It's been a while since I lived on the base. 7:24 p.m. Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country, our Constitution, giving states a chance to certify a corrected set of facts, not the fraudulent or inaccurate ones which they were asked to previously certify. USA demands the truth. Then he says, please support our Capitol Police and law enforcement. They are truly on the side of our country. Stay peaceful. Then at 10:13 p.m., I'm asking for everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful. No violence. Remember, we are the party of law and order. Respect the law and our great men and women in blue. Thank you. And then this was, this was he did a video, which I do have the text from that because the video has been deleted. So I'll read that to you next. And then finally he said, these are the things and events that happen when a sacred landslide election victory is so unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from great patriots who have been badly and unfairly treated for so long. Go home with love and in peace. Remember this day forever. So those were the tweets he said. So anybody who says, no, he didn't tell them to be peaceful. Yes, he did. It is right here. Please support our Capitol Police and law enforcement. They are truly on the side of our country. Stay peaceful. I am asking for everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful, no violence. So for anybody who's saying, well, he never said that. Yes, he actually did say that. Okay, let me pull up the text of that video. So this was deleted. I'm not sure if this was deleted when after he, because remember he was taken off of Twitter, now X, that same day. So I'm not sure if it was deleted when that happened or what happened, but here we go. Okay, so we have the text from the video, or the transcript, excuse me. So this was on January 6th, 2021. It doesn't say what the time was, and this is from the American Presidency Project again. I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order. We don't want anybody hurt. It's a very tough period of time. There's never been a time like this where such a thing happened, where they could take it away from all of us, from me, from you, from our country. This was a fraudulent election, but we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special. You've seen what happens. You see the way that others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel, but go home and go home at peace. Go home in peace. So, when I see these things and I try talking about others to others about these things, it is amazing to me the psychological operations that have happened here where people who are smart people, level-headed people will adamantly deny that he ever said these things, that he ever spoke out against violence in the Capitol, that he ever said that we need to peacefully and patriotically have our voices heard. They will up and down say, no, he didn't. And other people will say, I don't ever remember him saying that. He did. He said it on multiple occasions. So tell me, how is that inciting an insurrection? And you know what they did in Colorado to combat this? Because there is that evidence out there. What they did was they brought in someone who was a language expert of some kind. And basically, they were saying that what he was saying was code because he knew his extreme MAGA followers, the militia groups that are his followers, that they would know that peaceful meant violently. Like he basically sat there and said that every other word that he used, he switched them around. He switched around the meanings. So apparently, that's evidence in court now. So watch out what you say, guys, because they might just have someone come in and say, no, he actually meant the opposite because he knew the people listening would know that that's not what that meant. So no longer are we going by what a person actually says, right? Now they're just saying, it's not what he meant. It's not what he meant. That's where we are with this. It's just lunacy, truly lunacy to see what has happened with this. Like I said, level-headed people just going berserk over this. I just can't believe it. I really can't. I never got my decoder ring either, Hatch. Right? I mean, none of us knew. We didn't know. We're supposed to. Oh, yeah. Okay, we're gonna go take over the Capitol. Okay, yeah, it's an insurrection. Got it. So it's I don't even know how much more we can say, right? Like, how much more can we do? Like, he was impeached but acquitted. We have proof that he was saying, be peaceful, don't hurt the police officers, come on, guys, like, we don't need violence, don't play into their hands. Yes, we do believe the election was stolen, but you still got to be peaceful. And yet people still think he incited an insurrection, like he is Adolf Hitler, right? As we've heard many, many times now. He's Adolf Hitler. He's a dictator. He's going to start a civil war. I don't think he's the one starting it. I think it might be the other side, right? Like the ones that are sitting here saying these divisive things. It truly is amazing, Zach. It really is. Wish they saw it was a trap. I do too. I wish that people could see it. And Andrew, hey Andrew, that is correct, Dave. Footage, so research can't take everything that is jammed down our throats with a grain of salt. The truth is out there. You gotta look for it. Yes. And Dave Hurley is absolutely right. We are allowed to protest. We are allowed. It is one of our rights in the Constitution to peacefully protest. Yeah. And Zach is saying, my heart hurts for the people who are rotting in jail right now for being inside the Capitol building. Absolutely. Absolutely. And look, there's not to say that there weren't some crimes committed. There weren't crimes committed, right? I'm not going to say there weren't. Vandalism, like it hurt my heart to see, I was telling Dave Hurley, it hurt my heart to see the windows of the Capitol building being smashed. That is a crime. That is a crime. Actually, crossing the barricade in and of itself was a crime. Now they can't, arrest 20,000 people. But the vandalism is a crime. Accosting a police officer, assaulting a police officer is a crime. Now, some people were just trying to defend themselves, but there is video of some, like a couple people going after the cops. I don't think that was the majority. I think the majority of people were actually just trying to defend themselves or someone else. But those things are crimes. And yes, you should be held accountable for your behavior when it comes to that. But there are people rotting in jail who weren't even at the Capitol. And there are people that were trying to help, like the man holding up the crutch who was trying to keep the woman from being stomped and trampled on. I mean, he's got several indictments against him right now. It is absolutely crazy. Yes, the punishment did not fit the crimes. Right. And then we find out Ray Epps, who we see on multiple videos saying the day before, we're going to go into the Capitol. We're going to go into the Capitol. The day of, we're going into the Capitol, telling multiple people. He was one of the first through. He gets a misdemeanor and 6 months. And if you read through what the prosecutor was saying, it was like they were defending him. It's very weird. There's something fishy there. There's something fishy with Ray Epps. Why are people getting 20 years some not even being there? And this man who we saw inciting the crowd gets 6 months. That doesn't make sense. That does not make sense. And yes, Boner's right. DC did nothing. It is absolutely bonkers. So I know I've been yammering on for quite some time, but I do want to talk about one thing that people don't think about when it comes to something like this, that we don't often think about. And our country was founded on a revolution, right? It took a revolution to create our country. And oftentimes people will say, oh, well, the forefathers, like they would have, this is what Joe Biden kept saying. And this is why it pisses me off that he was doing this in Valley Forge, that, this is like, an assault to our democracy, AKA constitutional republic. You would think our president would know that, but he's old. But let's take a look at one of our founding fathers, at what he said. I found a letter from Thomas Jefferson that is actually extremely relevant to the events going on right now. And I want to read that to you. So let me get that. Sorry, I know I'm like going back and forth, but I have so many things I want to show you guys. Here we go. And this is a transcript of it, obviously. Make sure you guys are seeing it too. Yep, here we go. Okay, so this was, he was in Paris at the time, November 13th, 1787. I guess this is just part of it, maybe? Persevering lying, I don't know. The British ministry have so long hired their gazetteers to repeat and model into every form lies about our being an anarchy, that the world has at length believed them. The English nation has believed them. The ministers themselves have come to believe them. And what is more wonderful, we have believed them ourselves. Yet where does this anarchy exist? Where did it ever exist? Except in one single instance in Massachusetts. That's Shays' Rebellion that I was just talking about. And can history produce an instance of a rebellion so honorably conducted? I say nothing of its motives. They were founded in ignorance, not wickedness. God forbid we should ever be 20 years without such a rebellion. The people cannot be all and always well informed. The part which is wrong will be discontented in proportion to the importance of the facts they misconceive. If they remain quiet under such misconceptions, it is a lethargy, the forerunner of death to the public liberty. We have had 13 states independent, 11 years. There has been one rebellion. That comes to one rebellion in a century and a half for each state. What country before ever existed a century and a half without a rebellion? And what country can preserve its liberties if their rulers are not warned from time to time that the people preserve the spirit of resistance? Let them take arms. The remedy is to set them right as to facts, pardon, and pacify them. What signify a few lives lost in a century or two? The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. It is a natural manure our convention has been too much impressed by. Okay, so let's look at this part by part here. So at the beginning, he says, the British ministry have so long hired their gazetteers to repeat and model into every form lies about our being an anarchy. So the British ministry is basically having their newspapers print fake news, right? That the US is in anarchy. And they're doing it so much so he says that the world at length has believed them, the English nation has believed them, the ministers themselves have come to believe their own lies, and what's more wonderful, we've started to believe them. Our people in the United States have started to believe them. Yet where does this anarchy exist? He's saying it's not true, yet it's printed and talked about so much in the media, the newspapers for them, that everyone has come to believe it. And then he says, or he's talking about Massachusetts. He's talking about the rebellion there. I say nothing of its motives. They were founded in ignorance, not wickedness. God forbid we should ever be 20 years without such a rebellion. The people cannot be all and always well informed. So he's saying, yes, the general public is going to have some misconceptions. Here's another thing that a lot of people don't understand about the founding fathers. They didn't believe that all people were equal. In fact, there are writings that say, I can't remember who it was. It was Monroe, I believe, who said that Congress should be made up of kind of the upper class because they had a better understanding of the wider picture of things, whereas the general populace is living their daily lives. They're concentrated on that, and so they're going to be focused on the things that affect them in their daily lives. And so they felt that the upper class, the people who were more well educated, who were more wealthy, would be able to see a bigger picture. Something you don't hear about all the time, but that is how they felt about it. So he's saying here, Thomas Jefferson is saying that, the general public, they don't have all of the information. And sometimes when they hear information, it might be piecemeal or whatever he's thinking, but they may misunderstand it, right? And so their rebellion may be founded in ignorance, not wickedness. So he's not assuming the worst of people if they rebel. And the part which is wrong will be discontented to the proportion to the importance of the facts they misconceive. So depending on what they misconceive is going to be how upset they are about it, right? And if they remain quiet, it's a lethargy to the forerunner to the death of public liberty. I love that sentence. That if they remain quiet under such misconceptions, it is a lethargy, the forerunner of death to the public liberty. So lethargy is the forerunner to death of public liberty. Brilliant. Brilliant. If you stay complacent, nothing changes. Then he talks about we've had one rebellion. What country can preserve its liberties? When you hear liberties, think freedoms. Can preserve its liberties if their rulers are not warned from time to time that their people preserve the spirit of resistance. Let them take arms. For all those people who say that 2A isn't talking about the average person, that it's only talking about a militia, a military, false. Right there. He's saying, let the people take arms against the government if necessary. The remedy is to set them right. This is another really interesting part. So, okay, so there's this rebellion. The people maybe misunderstand facts or what have you. There's a rebellion. Let them. It's good for the government to be reminded that the people have the power. But then he says, but after that, the remedy, set them right to the facts, explain the bigger picture to them if needed, pardon and pacify them. Pardon them. Why would he say pardon someone who has created a rebellion? And by the way, people who talk about how, Article 14, Section 3 of Article 14, that insurrectionists can't take office, blah, 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 and that was created after the Civil War. Many Confederates were pardoned and forgiven, and they actually were in Congress. They allowed them to serve office. So why would Jefferson say pardon and pacify them? Because he understands that a lot of the time that the big picture cannot be seen by maybe the general public. And so he's saying a lot of times these things come from either misunderstanding or, kind of maybe a narrow focus, whatever it is, pardon them. Because as he said earlier, it's founded in ignorance, not wickedness. They're not wicked. They're not evil, as we so often hear. They're not evil. So pardon them. What signify a few lives lost in a century or two, the tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time. Oh, this one chokes me up. From time to time with the blood of patriots. Beautiful. So, no, do I want people killed? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Is it necessary? Perhaps. Perhaps. Nobody likes it. But sometimes it's necessary. Right? Like Thomas Jefferson said, that they that the rulers need to be warned from time to time that their people preserve the spirit of resistance. And that, my friends, is where we have gone wrong in this country. We have been complacent. We have that lethargy, which is the death of liberty, the precursor to the death of liberty. Now, am I saying go take arms against your country? No, that's not what I'm saying. If we can at all do it peacefully, absolutely, we should be doing it peacefully. And in fact, in the Constitution, they have put in articles that discuss about how you can, if it is an armed rebellion, how they can use the military to suppress that. But the peaceful power. But you know what? Part of being the peaceful rebellion is using your voice and talking about this, not falling for everything that is put out falsely into the media. We have become complacent. And that to me is the greatest tragedy about our country right now, is that we are complacent and we are believing the lies that are being put out there. And no longer, right? No longer. Their rulers need to be warned that the people preserve the spirit of resistance. They need to know. They need to know that we are what makes up the country. And we have the right to say, we don't believe you. We believe this election was rigged, without being called evil, without being called extreme or deplorables or any of the other terms that they use to describe people. Yes, I agree. The biggest thing is too many people these days are too passive. I know, right, Zach? Oh, put her in jail. No, I am not saying go take up arms and go, rebel against your government. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the idea, the thought behind what Jefferson is saying rings true today just as much as it did then, that we need to assert our independence, assert our liberties, the civil liberties which are afforded to us through the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. We need to assert our liberties. Do not be complacent. Do not be lethargic. Assert your liberty. Well, on that note, I don't know a better way to end this video. So thank you guys so much for being here with me. Thank you for... Too many people have been watching cable news. XJ is absolutely right. And people have been in willful ignorance. I agree. I agree 100% with you guys. It is crazy, but let's do what we can, right? All we can do is keep talking about it. If nothing else, all we can do is keep talking about it at this point in time and make your voices heard. Do not, I will never be one of those people. There's a reason that my title is rebellious. I am one of those people who, if you tell me not to say something, I'm going to say it, and I'll probably say it 15 times in the next sentence that comes out of my mouth. I am not one of those people that is going to back down because somebody tells me that I can't say something, because we do have the First Amendment. We are entitled to say whatever we want, whether or not someone likes it, whether or not people believe it is hateful. We still have the right to say it. Now, and you have the right to say anything. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't consequences for some of the things you say. If you're threatening someone, if you're, doing things that are actually illegal, saying things that are illegal, yeah, okay, you can still say it, but there are going to be consequences. But talking about our religious, or not our religious, well, in some cases, religious liberties, but our civil liberties should never, ever be discouraged. It should be encouraged. So thank you guys so much for joining me. And I look forward to the next one. I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing, but I am going to be starting the member videos next week. I'm going to try to do the first one on Monday morning. So if you guys do want to see those, don't forget to become a member. We would love to have you join our rebellious family. And I'm hoping to do 3 member episodes a week. So would love to see you there. They're going to be, I think, probably in the morning. We're going to look at the news of the day, maybe do some deep dives on certain subjects. And then I'm still going to be doing bigger videos for you guys as a whole as well, too. But would love to see you guys there in our member videos as well, if you're able to. And thank you. I'm going to let you guys go on a Dave Hurley song to soothe the soul, right? Before we go, we'll get you all revved up. And where's the link to this? I'm going to have to find it. I think if you go, Chris was saying she couldn't find it either. Hold on a second. I'm going to pull it up on my phone because I think it should be right under. Where's my channel? That's what I need. Hold on. Hopefully I don't hear myself. Right on there. Where is it on here? Is anybody seeing it? That is strange. Where is it? I think, is it in the chat? Let me look it up on here on the computer. Because I've had other people ask me that, and I'm not sure why it's not showing up, but let me see if it comes up for me. All right, I'm going to pull up. Okay, so if you're on your computer, let me share this screen with you. Stop screen. Sorry, didn't want to cough in your ear just like Joe Biden. Okay. Here we are. Okay, I'm going to share my screen with you. It's screen and screen. It's Insurrection. Okay, so like this. On your computer, at least, it is right here, join. So if you click join, yay, Poner Houston, welcome, Alpha Rebel. So yes, that's where you can join. On your phone, that I don't know. I'm not sure why it's not showing up. I'll have to look into that and see if I can figure that out. But if nothing else, yeah, you can do it on the computer for sure. But I will also try to find a link and I'll put it down in the description. So, all right, let me pull this back out. The dog is stammering. He wants to eat. That's the problem. All righty. So thank you guys so much. Thank you for being here. Andrew, good seeing you. It's been a while, my friend. But we're glad that you got here. Yes, you did get it. Woo-woo. And I'm going to be adding more emojis too. There's still like I think the Lynn and Caitlin face emojis are still in there. But I'm going to be adding some more as well. But all right, I'm going to take you out to soothe the soul with a Dave Hurley song. And I will see our members on Monday morning. And the rest of you, I will see probably Tuesday. I think I'm going to try to do an episode on Tuesday. All right. What do we got? Oh, Ripple Effect. So for those that don't know, Ripple Effect actually is about politics. So it is very on brand here. Here we go.
Gold and my heart and soul shoes and walk among the groups of two. It's not ideal, it's just how we feel. It's a shame we're easily amused. The only cure for this forward motion to make emotion fly away. It's cold, but the water's not frozen. I see ripples rolling every day. Cast a stone and get a hardcore view. Catchphrase of the day is that it's true. There's no coffee talk and only one way to please. It's a shame what you do moves me. The only cure for this forward motion to make emotion fly away. The air is cold, but the water's not frozen. I see ripples rolling every day. Yeah, not looking for a windswept view.